Elizabeth Bathory was a Hungarian countess who allegedly tortured and killed hundreds of young women in the 16th and 17th centuries. She's often considered the most prolific female serial killer in history and the inspiration for many vampire tales. But who was she really, and what drove her to commit such heinous crimes? Elizabeth Bathory was born in 1560 into a prominent Protestant noble family in Hungary. Her family controlled Transylvania, and her uncle Stephen Bathory was king of Poland. She was raised at the family castle in Echet, Hungary, where she received a high-quality education. She could speak several languages, including Hungarian, Latin, German, and Greek. She also learned about politics, religion, and warfare from her relatives. In 1575, when she was 15 years old, she married Count Ferenc Nadasdy, a member of another Hungarian family. The marriage was arranged for political reasons, but it was also based on mutual respect and affection. The couple moved to Castle Chetice, which was a wedding gift from the Nadasdy family located in present-day Slovakia. There, they lived a lavish and luxurious life, hosting many parties and guests. They also had 4 children together. Elizabeth Bathory wasn't a typical noblewoman of her time. She was independent, ambitious, and assertive. She managed the estates and affairs of her husband while he was away fighting in wars against the Ottoman Empire at the time. She also defended her land from invaders and rebels, earning the respect and admiration of her people. She was known for her generosity and charity towards the poor and the sick. She also supported many artists and scholars and patronized several schools and churches. However, behind this facade of nobility and virtue, there was a dark side to Elizabeth Bathory. According to legend, she had a sadistic and cruel personality and a morbid fascination with blood. She began to abuse, torture, and kill young girls who worked as servants or peasants on her land. She would lure them into her castle with promises of work or education, or simply kidnap them from nearby villages. She would then subject them to horrific acts of violence such as beating, biting, burning, cutting, freezing, starving, or mutilating them with needles, knives, scissors, or iron maidens. She would also drain their blood and allegedly bathe in it and drink it, believing it would keep her young and beautiful. Her crimes were believed to have started around 1590 after her husband's death. The exact number of her victims is unknown, but according to some estimates, she's believed to have tortured and killed between 80 to 650 young women between 1950 and 1610. This makes her one of the most prolific serial killers in history, surpassing other infamous names such as Jack the Ripper or Ted Bundy. The number of her victims is based on the testimony of one of her servants who claimed to have seen a list of names written by Elizabeth Bathory herself. However, some scholars have questioned the credibility of this testimony as it was given under torture and could have been influenced by the interrogators. Some have also suggested that the number was exaggerated to justify the confiscations of her lands and wealth by the crown. Elizabeth is said to have committed acts of extreme cruelty and sadism against her victims using various instruments and methods of torture. One reason that she supposedly had for killing her victims was that she was influenced by her husband, who taught her some methods of torture that he used on his enemies. She may have also inherited some traits of violence or madness from her family, who were known for their cruelty or eccentricity. Another reason might include her obsession with her appearance or fear of aging. She may have suffered from a rare blood disorder that made her skin pale and bruised easily. She may have also believed in the superstition that blood had magical properties that could rejuvenate or heal. Also, she may have been bored or curious about the effects of pain and death. She may have enjoyed the power and control she had over her victims. Elizabeth was a powerful and wealthy noblewoman who enjoyed a high social status and political influence. She was also related to many prominent figures in Hungarian history, such as King Stephen Bathory or Prince Gábor Bathory. Her crimes were seen as a threat to the stability and reputation of the Hungarian nobility and monarchy. Some of the factors that may have contributed to her crimes or their exposure include the political situation. Hungary was divided and weakened by wars with the Ottoman Empire and internal conflicts among the nobles. Elizabeth Bathory's family was involved with many political intrigues and disputes with other factions. She herself was accused of supporting rebels against King Matthias, who owed her a large debt. The social situation. Hungary was experiencing a period of social unrest and economic decline due to wars, famines, plagues, and corruption. Elizabeth's victims were mostly poor peasant girls who had little protection or rights under the feudal system. She may have exploited their vulnerability or viewed them as disposable objects. Her crimes may have also reflected the widespread violence and brutality that characterized the society at that time. The cultural situation. Hungary was influenced by various cultural trends and beliefs that may have shaped Elizabeth Bathory's personality or actions. She may have been influenced by the Renaissance humanism that promoted individualism and curiosity, by the occultism that explored magic and alchemy, by the folklore that featured vampires and witches, or by the superstition that associated blood with life force and beauty. Elizabeth's crimes weren't widely known or reported for decades, as she had the authority and influence to cover them up or silence any witnesses or complaints. She also had the loyalty and obedience of her servants who helped her in her crimes or disposed of the bodies. However, Elizabeth's crimes became more exposed and scandalous when she began to target noble girls who belonged to the same class as her. She allegedly invited them to her castle under the pretext of giving them education or etiquette lessons, or arranged marriages for them with their relatives or acquaintances. These girls were more valued and respected by society, and their families had more power and connections to demand justice or revenge. Their disappearances or deaths also attracted more attention and suspicion from the authorities and the public. King Matthias ordered an investigation into her crimes in 1609. He appointed her cousin George Thurzo as the investigator. Thurzo was also the Palatine of Hungary, which was the highest-ranking official in the country after the king. He had the authority and responsibility to maintain law and order in the kingdom. Thurzo had gathered testimonies from survivors or witnesses who had escaped or seen Elizabeth's crimes. He also collected letters from her relatives or acquaintances who had expressed their concerns or suspicions about her behavior. He also prepared a team of soldiers and officials to raid her castle and arrest her. On December 30th, 1609, Thurzo and his team arrived at the castle without warning. They claimed to have found evidence of Elizabeth Bathory's atrocities, such as mutilated bodies of young women in various stages of decay, blood-stained instruments of torture such as needles, knives, scissors, hot irons, and fire, and dungeons full of prisoners who were waiting for their fate. They also arrested Elizabeth Bathory and her servants, who were accused of helping her in her crimes. They confiscated all of her belongings and sealed off her castle. Although it's commonly believed that Bathory was caught in the act of torture, she was actually having dinner with some guests when Thurzo arrived. Thurzo made the declaration to her guests and villagers that he had caught her red-handed, but this may have been a lie to justify his actions. Some historians have suggested that Thurzo had ulterior motives for arresting Bathory, such as gaining favor with the king or inheriting her land. The trial of Bathory and her servants was held in 1611 at Bicha Castle, which is present-day Slovakia. The trial was conducted in a hasty and irregular manner without following the proper legal procedures or allowing Bathory to defend herself. The verdict was predetermined by the king, who wanted to avoid paying his debt to Bathory or facing a rebellion from her supporters. The witnesses and confessions were coerced or bribed by Thurzo, who wanted to secure his position as the Palatine or inherit Bathory's estate. The servants confessed under torture and were executed, while Bathory was sentenced to life imprisonment in her own castle. The servants were accused of being accomplices or accessories to Bathory's crimes, and they were sentenced to various forms of execution, such as beheading, burning, or hanging. Some of them were also tortured before their execution, such as having their fingers ripped off or their breasts cut off. Bathory was spared from execution because of her noble status, but she was condemned to solitary confinement in her own castle. She was confined to her room with only slits for air and food. She died there in 1614 at the age of 54. The trial of Bathory was controversial and questionable, as there was no conclusive evidence or reliable historical evidence to support the accusations against her. Some scholars have argued that she was framed by her enemies or rivals who wanted to seize her lands or tarnish her reputation. Others have suggested that she was mentally ill or suffered from a rare blood disorder that made her crave blood. Elizabeth Bathory's story is shrouded in mystery and controversy, as there's no conclusive or reliable evidence to support or refute the accusations against her. Her story has inspired many works of fiction, such as novels, films, games, and songs. She's often portrayed as a vampire or a witch, and is sometimes associated with Dracula. She's also known as Countess Dracula. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about this topic. See you next time, and bye for now.